We're going to go ahead and get started since you guys are here.
You're not afraid of a workshop. We are really brave people.
Yeah. So good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We will try to keep you awake this afternoon. I know we had a nice lunch and big activity, but yeah, hopefully this will be a bit interactive. We've got some videos, so you can see some real life examples of kind of working with parents on this model.
So I'm taking away. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm Michele Moser, and I'm at the ETSU Center of Excellence for Children in State Custody.
And I'm Kristin, also with the Center of Excellence in Knoxville.
And part of what we do at Center of Excellence is disseminate evidence-based treatment models. And so we're talking about one that we've done. I did look it up two times,
yeah.
2020 and 2022. What a model we're really excited about and really want to, it's a really good prevention model. And so we're trying it out and seeing what we can do to maybe bring it to Tennessee. I was telling Megan, oh, you want to introduce yourself since you're going to be hanging out together?
Us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Maria. Should I
Sure. Where do you work? What do you do?
Okay. I work with Centerstone for a grant called Home Builders. And we get into families' homes when DCS is about to remove the children or when they're reunifying. So we're there to help prevent removal and to help rejoin family. So
it's a family first model too, right?
Yep, family therapy. We go for 40 hours for 4 weeks. So it's really intensive. Wow. We're kind of like the firefighters. We get in there when there's a big crisis and then we simmer it, and then we refer to ongoing services that can stay longer. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I'm Trey King. I am our operations director for the Department of Disability and Age.
I'm Megan Bird. I'm the director of Public and Hospital COE.
Great. Well, so you can advance it. Yeah. So what?
Are you ready for me?
Yeah. Go ahead. I think this is the beginning is really the story of how we got here. Maybe it doesn't move at all.
Either.
Well, I'll tell you about it. So the COEs have disseminated a lot of trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy for kids with trauma. And one of the criteria is you can't have an offending caregiver as part of the treatment. While we know we reunify children a lot with parents who have done physical abuse, coercive parenting, we often send the parents to anger management and then whatever mental health treatment, and then send them right back with their kids. The kids might have gotten TF-CBT, but there's not been that parent-child work. And so, we've seen that. Does it work? Yes. Okay. Oh, there it is. I was going to go back to the Melissa. Yeah. So one of the COE folks discovered this model of combined parent-child cognitive behavioral therapy, CPC-CBT. Melissa Runyon, who lives in Kentucky now, she actually was one of the developers of this model. She's a TF-CBT trainer. She had been at the CARES Institute, worked with Esther Deblinger, and they saw this gap in this need. So she developed this model, done some research, and she is a TF-CBT trainer that we love in Tennessee and have a partnership. And so it was a great marriage of bringing this model here. And I was telling Megan, and our first cohort was supposed to start in April 2020. So we had the agencies all picked. We'd done all the things, we had pre-work, and then that happened. And so we've had 2 dissemination projects of this model, both virtual and And it's a very challenging model to bring into the prevention system because it's not how things are typically done. We usually send the parents for their treatment, give the kids a treatment, and then do reunification. So we are excited about this model, and it has pieces that are really, I think, really helpful to folks. Is there something else I'm supposed to say about this besides the partnership with Melissa Rennie? Okay. And the grounding about child physical abuse, and just I think some of y'all have been in some meetings where they talked about 50% of some of the referrals kids have documented physical abuse. Melissa really starts out talking about the issue of corporal punishment, right? Because that is a big risk factor, the over-reliance on corporal punishment for families of that risk factor for child abuse. So in 2014, 37% of children in the US were exposed to corporal punishment. We know in other countries that like corporal punishment is outlawed, and so it's a little bit different here in Tennessee. The World Health Organization indicated that 25 to 50% of children worldwide have experienced some kind of child physical abuse. 6 out of every 10 children reportedly experience some form of child physical abuse in their lifetime. And then I tried to find some updated information, like data. And what I found, this was like a dashboard of ongoing data about child maltreatment types from the child welfare outcomes. They apparently issue a report every once in a while, but they keep the data updated. And they said 52% of the child maltreatment types substantiated in Tennessee in 2022 were for physical abuse. So that's a lot of kids that are being impacted by physical abuse. If you were at the TF-CBT, we really talked about the importance of caregiver involvement and to have the caregiver be there as part of the treatment. The challenge is if the caregiver is part of the abuse. So we know that we need the caregiver involved for optimal healing. So one of the things that we've started to pay attention to is the quality of the relationship with the caregiver is one of those supportive factors for good outcomes for kids. And in our state, we paid a lot of attention to the prevalence of ACEs and the impact of ACEs. And then there has been kind of new work, and I think we brought Dr. Bethel into Tennessee to talk about positive childhood experiences, but that really looking at what are the factors in the child's life that promote resilience, that are positive, so that even if you have ACEs, what are the pieces that you can support and promote for children and for their healing to have good outcomes in adulthood? And so we're paying attention to that piece of the work. It's not really new. Like old psychologists like me know from the 80s, we had work on resilience. And what was it? It was an invested adult caregiver to have good outcomes. But we know that the supportive adult is a major protective factor for children's resiliency and learning to cope. And the number one predictor of a child overcoming the impact of trauma and abuse is that supportive caregiver. And that came from the folks that were doing the research with TF-CBT. So caregiver involvement is optimal to have the best outcomes for kids. Welcome. You didn't want a submission here, right? We're just getting started to kind of lay the groundwork of the important factors here for this model. And so looking at the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy literature and research, really supported that idea again in this model that caregiver involvement had better outcomes and optimal outcomes. But there is that question, what was the factors? And so they did 3 different kinds of treatment conditions. One was just the child and the therapist kind of doing that standard, like let's do the model with just the child. Let's do a model of parent coaching kind of model, no child, just teach the parent the skills. And then having the child and parent, like the kind of TF-CBT that we do, that both are involved. And so they looked at different outcomes. And so if you just have the child alone, you could see a change in the trauma symptoms. And that makes sense. You're doing the model and you're doing the trauma processing. When you had parental involvement, though, you do see different, you see the behavior problems getting better because, again, you're focusing on that caregiver skills and the relationship. Children's depression, other kinds of symptoms got better. And you obviously saw when parents have the opportunity to learn to do better, their parenting practice have changed. And then we're thinking about that, that is the prevention, right? If you give them the skills going forward, you're doing the prevention. So they did a study with the CPC-CBT and evaluated the benefit of including the child instead of just doing the parent coaching for at-risk parents. And the way that they talked about at-risk parents were parents who either use coercive parenting practices, excessive physical discipline, or substantiated physical abuse. There were greater reductions in children's PTSD symptoms and improvement in positive parenting skills when both parent and child were involved, which makes sense, or than when just treating the parent alone. And again, if we're thinking about reunification, it makes like total sense to be working with those two together. So this is a picture, kind of this a snapshot of what this model is about. It's a short-term treatment meant to be 16 to 20 sessions. The way they did it when they developed it was 90-minute sessions so that you had time with the child alone, time with the caregiver alone, and time with them together. When we brought it to Tennessee, we don't have 90, some grants do, but most, mental health centers don't have that. So there are ways to figure out how to do this component. It might take a little bit longer if you can't have 90-minute sessions, but how do you get all those time with parent, time with child, and then that time together? So this is considered a trauma-informed, evidence-based practice. And again, that caregiver component is a critical piece. Oh, this is a tricky one. So this is a fancy picture of the model. And so today we're really about doing a workshop on some of the skills that come out of here. But this model is beautiful, that there are 4 kind of phases. And the first one and the most important one is that engagement phase. And that's the place where if you're thinking about parents who are coming who've hurt their child and are coming to treatment, they have a lot of challenges engaging them. They might have been told to be there. They have a lot of shame. So there's a lot of front end work to do with engagement of these caregivers because, we know we healed them. We help them heal their child. This is going to be the best outcome long term. So that first engagement phase has looking at kind of what happened, empathizing with the parent about kind of how it happened, hearing their story, really joining with them. And then the same with the child, right? You're engaging the child. So there's an engagement phase, the coping skills, teaching strategies for affect regulation and coping and problem solving. And I should say that across this whole thing is safety, right? That while we have safety planning and skill building as one of the phases, there really is attention to safety all along the way in the beginning, because you can't do the work if you haven't supported both the parent and the child in feeling safe. So I guess I just needed to do all these for it. So you can see this is your engagement phase has motivational interviewing as a piece of the right meeting the parent where they're at, joining them with their goals and engaging them in the journey along with their child, and parenting skills. So those things just weave through, right? It's not like you do parenting skills and then never touch that again. Those are pieces that go through. And so if you've seen TF-CBT, you'll see some things that you recognize from a treatment of best practices for trauma. So you'll see the psychoeducation around the issue, effective coping skills, and you're doing with the parent, you're mirroring with the child through this, and then each session you're meeting with them together, that they can share activities or information, like kind of same things they have. Again, you're working towards building that relationship back. And then family safety planning and skill building, those are some of the next, and that's really working with the whole family about thinking about what was that incident that happened, what contributed to it, what can we build in our family process for safety, what are our kind of like de-escalation plans. So this is the parent and maybe the target child, but what in the whole house, right? Like, how do we make this a safe house? And because it's not all going to go away, people are going to get upset, people are going to get scared. Like, how do we build the safety plan in? And it's agreed upon, built with the child and the parent together. The most unique and such powerful piece of this is the clarification phase. And this is the piece that really is missing from a lot of treatment. And that is, you've joined with that parent, they've learned a lot of things, they've changed things in their family, and they write a letter to the child talking about the incident, and it's not the kid's fault, like what happened, like I'm glad you told, our family is better. It like comes from the parent's heart of a way to rejoin with the child, take responsibility for it, and have a connection. Now, you don't just have the parent write it and give it to them. Like, this is a process, like the trauma narrative, right? You help the parent be positive. And at the same time, if you have TF-CBT, the child is doing that trauma narrative piece, right? Like, here's my story, here's my process. And then they join together on this, where the parent can share the letter, the child can share. So there's this really coming together after all that hard work, and it is hard work. This isn't like it makes it sound easy. Oh, go from here to here to here. This is a lot of engagement with, caregivers that are hurt themselves, have been impacted by the system themselves. But it is really a powerful model.
Question.
Yeah.
As far as the safety planning, when you have the child abuse that is involved within that family, is there like a model or a template for it? And do you have to revise it over time?
That's a great, and I think it would be different with every family, because it's generated together with the parent and the child. What do they need? What would be the action plan if things were escalating? So yeah, it would make sense if you did that at the beginning, as you're going. So they have it later on in the session, but you have to have safety, right? Chris is going to talk about that, but yeah, well, I mean, the psychological safety, but physical safety, right? We can't have this if the child is going to be injured, right? So there's a baseline, but then there's agreements, like what are we going to do? So his safety is woven in through it. And then there's that continuous planning. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right. It's the kid in the family. It's not a one size fit all. It's not it's not, there are probably areas where similar, like you're making it, paying attention to, safety for everybody and time, time out or time in or wherever people are going to go, some of those things are the same, but it would be different, right? Like, who's available for support? Like, who's the mom going to use? Who's the child going to use? So it would be crafted together with them.
Yeah, especially with a lot of conflict,
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then it would evolve over time, right?
Right.
Like, as the family goes through
Right.
therapy and things change and
Right.
modify. Yeah, great question. So yeah, physical safety first, then psychological safety. So in working with these parents, a key factor is helping them to be regular so that they can parent effectively, right? Most parents who are physically abusive or use coercive parenting aren't intending to hurt their children, right? Like, they don't become a parent so they can hurt their child. It's because they get dysregulated, right? And they have a lack of skills. And maybe that's what they were taught in their homes, right? There's different reasons. So before we can help them parent, we have to help them regulate. So this is just a model that Dr. Runyon adopted from Dr. Perry about sort of kind of how to help parents regulate. And these are just some nice visuals to kind of help you think about this, right? We have to regulate first before we can relate to each other, and then before we can reason. Okay, so if you think about your brain being activated, emotionally activated, when all of us are activated, we're not very logical, right? When we're having strong feelings, we're not very logical. So we have to get regulated first before we can attune to somebody else and before we can reason with them, right? So That's kind of our first step, is to regulate. So helping parents learn how to regulate. What helps you calm down? What are things that you can do to sort of manage your own feelings? And these are things we can do with the parents that we can model for them to do with their child. So thinking about using soothing language. Is there a safe space that you can go to when you're upset? Giving time, using quiet tones. Make sure that you're feeling comfortable, that you're with a trusted adult. Right? So starting that regulation process first. And then once you're regulated, how can you attune to your child, right? Use a calm, sensitive dialogue. Acknowledge how your child is feeling, right? So be in tune with where your child's at. You can't do that. You can't regulate with another person if you're not regulated yourself, right? So connect with them, then share your own experience of that emotion. I think sometimes parents worry about sharing their feelings with their child, like they can't be upset or can't, share that with their child or show that to your child. And what I like to tell parents is that's good coping. Like, it's good coping to be able to express how you feel and to tell your child, I was upset in this moment. Here's what's going on with me, but I took some breaths. I'm feeling better. Let's talk about this, right? That's good coping, and it's good modeling for your kids. And then you can get to the reasoning. Now that we're calm, we're in the mindset to learn, right? Sometimes we try to teach our kids things when we're revved up, we're upset with them, and we're trying to teach them why they should do what we told them to do. It's not a good time to teach, right? When everybody's revved up. So we save teaching for when we're calm. Once things have calmed down, then we can teach, then we can reason with everybody, right? So helping parents learn to regulate. Another key component about this model, which I just love and is my favorite thing, is helping parents with empathy. Having parents who have empathy for their child are going to be less likely to hurt their child, okay? Parental empathy is really a key factor in reducing child physical abuse. Empathy changes how we act. If we're able to see another person's perspective, that's going to change how we interact with that person, right? If we see them as other or we don't understand their perspective, we're less likely to give them grace or to be kind to them or to understand them. So we have research that supports this. Parents who empathize with their kids are much less likely to engage in physical discipline and physical abuse. So in the context of that relationship, that's really important. And so we think enhancing parental empathy can really promote safety. So we spend a lot of time on that in this model. So think about where you learn to empathize. How do we learn empathy? Where do we see that as kids? We learn it from our caregivers, right? If you have caregivers who don't do that, then you're less likely to learn that, right? Unless you've got other healthy adults around you. So for a lot of our parents, they did not learn this from their caregivers. A lot of our parents who engage in these kinds of practices had parents who engaged in these kinds of practices, right? So they didn't often see empathy modeled really well. So part of our job in working with them is to help sort of teach them some of this, to sort of be purposeful about modeling empathy. So being able to label and acknowledge emotions, right? Label and acknowledge how you feel, be able to do that for your child. Modeling empathic behavior by demonstrating an understanding of how others might feel in a specific situation. How do you think your child might feel when you get angry and you raise your voice, or when you spank them with a belt? How do you think they might be feeling in that moment? How did you feel in that moment when you were a child and that was happening to you? Practice putting themselves in another person's situation, and then just, encouraging them to encourage their child to be kind, right? To be kind to others and to demonstrate compassionate behavior for others. So we're not going to go through the whole model. You kind of saw that from Dr. Moser. We're really going to just focus on this engagement phase with parents, because I think this is something everybody can use in working with caregivers with this population, and kind of increasing that engagement and that empathy. One of the first things we do with these parents, think about the perspective of these families who they've been contacted by DCS. Their people are looking at them. They're trying to get their kids back, or maybe they have them back, but people are watching, right? And, how are they going to feel? Probably a little defensive, right? And cautious and not sort of trusting you or whoever your team is coming in to work with them. And so our job in order to engage with these families is to be able to connect with them and meet them where they are and to be able to empathize with their experience, right? Parenting is hard. It's hard for everybody, right? It's hard for people in the best of circumstances who have lots of resources and lots of help. It's still hard, right? So think about our families who don't have a lot of resources and maybe who didn't get good parenting themselves, right? So empathize with that, connect with the parents about the difficulties and the challenges of parenting. And using motivational interviewing skills to try to enhance their engagement and their motivation for change. And Dr. Moser mentioned this, like, what are their goals? Help identify what they need. Do they need support? Do they need help? Do they need some strategies because they're frustrated with their child? And how can we meet them, give them what they need, while also giving them some extra skills to help with parenting and to manage, to give them some behavior management strategies. Okay, so we're going to show you this video of Dr. Runyon role playing with one of our colleagues from Memphis, Melissa James, who's fabulous. And so one of the first things we do in this engagement phase in order to have some empathy for the parent is we ask them to tell us their version of what happened. So we call this disclosure of the referral incident. So the referral incident is the thing that got them referred to DCS, right? What was the event that happened that got the DCS call and them knocking on your door? Okay. And so usually tell parents, want to hear your side of things. What happened? Okay. So what I want you to do is kind of listen for Dr. Runyon's going to try and get information about kind of what happened, what was going on just before, what kind of led up to this, what happened during the event, and then what happened afterwards. Okay. So those kind of the antecedent, the behavior, and then the consequence, right? What happened before, during, and after. And notice how she's really trying to elicit from the parent's own feelings, the parent's own thoughts about what happened, right? So that she can develop some empathy for her.
Much. What I'd like to hear a little bit more about too is it does sound like you're really struggling with this, that you're trying to figure out what to do, and that she doesn't always listen and she's making some choices that are really concerning to you. So I really want to hear from you what it was like in your experience trying to parent her. What led up to the belt incident? What happened when you used the belt during the belt incident, and then what happened afterwards? Okay, I really want to understand what it's like for you to parent Mary.
She's challenging. Like I said before, she is very, very challenging. Mm-hmm. She is very smart. She can make good grades when she puts her mind to it. Mm-hmm. But once she hits 6th grade, it's like switch was flipped. Mm-hmm. And she has gotten so full of herself. She's starting to develop. She loves boys. She's always really liked attention, mm-hmm. but it's gotten pretty bad. And I don't know if kids these days know what they're saying. Mm-hmm. You know, she has her cell phone. Mm-hmm. We don't let her have it overnight. She has been known to sneak it and keep it in her room overnight, and she gets in trouble for that. Mm-hmm. And we do spank. That incident with the belt was a one-time thing, but my husband and I both, I'm usually the one that gets saddled with disciplining, mm-hmm. but I had enough. She had been in trouble and sassy all week, mm-hmm. and I found out that we had taken the phone. You know, she has to turn it in at 10 o'clock. She puts it on our dresser, and I found her in the middle of the night. I got up to go to the bathroom. I heard her laughing, and I busted up in there, and I saw that she was on her cell phone. I grabbed it from her, and I started reading her text messages, and she had been, let's just say there were some things in there that an 11-year-old shouldn't know about and should not be texting about.
Okay.
and sexual things.
Okay.
And so it got to be a big brouhaha. My husband came in.
Mm-hmm.
He was being very sassy. I was spanking her, and then she didn't even, she was jumping around. So she had her belt on the floor. I grabbed her belt,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to spank her, and she was running away, and I kept trying to hit her butt, and it got on her legs, and that's how these marks got there. And I just had enough. I don't think there's anything wrong with whipping with the belt on the bottom. I was not going for her legs, but she was being all squirmy and running away. And we just had enough.
Okay.
And I lost my temper, and I probably shouldn't have done that. Lost my temper, but I'm getting worked up even talking about it. It was
Sure.
upsetting. And now we've got to go through all this, and it's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need, we need help parenting her.
Mm-hmm.
She's always been challenging, and it's just getting worse.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So as you said, I'm getting worked up when I'm talking about this. I could see that you're getting worked up when you're talking about it. Now let's go back just a little bit and focus on some of these things that you shared with me. I want to make sure that I understand and I kind of have this right. So essentially what you were saying is that, you've been concerned about her for a while. It didn't just start that day. You were concerned. She'd been mouthy. She was doing some things you felt like she shouldn't be doing, especially her interest in boys and how she liked attention from boys and things like that. And so it sounds like you'd already tried to limit her access to her cell phone. And that particular night, you were already feeling a little fed up with everything that was going on. And so you took the cell phone, and you got up, you were walking down the hallway, and you heard her talking to someone.
Yeah, giggling.
Giggling and talking to someone. So in that evening, before you heard her giggling and talking to someone, right, on that evening.
She was texting, so she wasn't really talking.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So she was texting, not talking, and you heard the giggling, and that's when you went in and found it. But before that, tell me, like that evening, like being fed up, like what were some of the thoughts you were having? What were you thinking?
Before all that, before I found her doing that?
Yeah, before that. Because you said you were already fed up.
Well, we had been fed up. She, first semester in 6th grade went okay. She got in trouble a couple of times for being disrespectful to the teacher, not staying in her seat. I mean, things like that. Had been late with a couple of assignments that she knows better. I'm telling you, she's a smart little girl.
Yeah.
And there's some girls that she's been hanging out with that I'm not sure are good influences. And I don't know that week, we just have a lot going on. My job's gotten tougher, with the pandemic and everything. My husband's afraid he's going to lose his job. So it's just gotten really stressful, and she just doesn't help. She doesn't help, and she just continues to make things challenging. I don't know if that week, I guess things were, I guess we're strung out from all things going on in our family, not just her. Yeah. And I will concede that it's not just her. We all have stuff going on, and it's challenging for all of our family. But I think honestly, in that moment when I whipped her with the belt, I think I get scared. I get scared that she's going to be promiscuous. And I get mad that we try and talk to her about it, and she just doesn't listen. I don't know if that week was really any different than any other week, except for we found her basically sexting a little boy.
Right.
Little, because they're in 6th grade.
Right.
Doing that kind of stuff.
Right. So you've been concerned for a while. on that particular day, you said that week and during the pandemic that you've had a lot going on. It's more stressful than usual.
Yes.
And it's stressful to try to parent her and to worry about, is she making the right choices and all those things to start with. But now we've got, your husband might lose his job. There are a lot of other things going on that sort of led up to this situation where you walked in. So you walk in and you hear her giggle, you walk in and you see her texting on the phone, and you take the phone. So in that moment, when you started going through and looking at what she was doing, what were the first thoughts that popped into your head, Melissa? What were you thinking in that moment?
I was shocked. I was shocked.
Uh-huh.
And I was furious. Well, I was already mad because she had stolen the phone.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And taken it off our dresser.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that is like, she knew, I mean, she planned that out. You know, this wasn't something where she just was walking by my dresser and grabbed it. I mean, she planned it out. They probably had this big old plan to meet up on text at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had that planned out. So I was furious about that.
Uh-huh.
She'd done it before, but I'd never caught her at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out it was a boy and it was all that sexual stuff,
Mm-hmm.
well, first I was shocked, and then I was really mad. I'm sorry, but I was really mad.
Sure. So here you are. So you walk by, you're like, you see that she has the phone that she's not supposed to have. You're thinking, oh, she had to plan this out. This was premeditated. She had to think this through to get that phone to be in here and using it at 2 o'clock in the morning. And you said you were pretty mad at that point. If we were to scale that from 1 to 10, 1 being, not mad at all, and 10 being the maddest that you've ever felt, where would we be on that scale? How mad would you be in that moment when you were thinking, oh, this was premeditated, she planned this out?
I would say probably an 8. The maddest is when I was whipping her with the belt and she was getting away from me.
Uh-huh.
That's when I got up to a 10.
Okay.
Excuse my language, but that pissed me off.
Okay.
She knows when we spank, we mean it,
Yeah. So what pissed you off? So here you are, you're at an 8, she had this plan, then you open the phone and you see what she's been sending to these boys. You said very inappropriate sexual things. And you did say, some of the thoughts you were having too, is she making bad choices? You thought, oh, she's going to get pregnant, she's going to go down the wrong path, those kind of things. And so at that point, are you still at an 8, or are you getting a little angrier there before you saw the belt?
Oh no, the more I think about it, the more angry I get.
Yeah.
But maybe let me back up. When I first grabbed the phone, I do escalate. So I was probably grabbed the phone, I might have been at a 7 because I'm mad. But then once I get it and I start thinking it's 2 a.m,
right.
She obviously planned this out. I'm getting up there.
Right.
I see the content that it's sexual with the little boy, then I'm furious.
Absolutely. And rightfully so that you're concerned about her. You're concerned about her well-being and the choices that she's making. Absolutely. So then you did say you saw that belt on the floor and you were furious at that point. You said you grabbed the belt, you started trying to hit her, and then you said
on the bottom.
Okay.
Aiming for her bottom.
Okay. You're trying to hit her on the bottom and she's moving all around, and you said you thought because you think she knows we're serious when we're spanking her.
Yes.
You said I was pissed off at that point because she continued to move around when I was trying to spank her.
Yes, and I was screaming some bad language too, which
Okay.
I'm not proud of in front of my 11-year-old. But I was furious.
Mhm.
Yeah, she knew she needed it. She knew not to be running away and stuff, that I was serious.
Mm-hmm.
She knew that.
Yeah. So you're thinking she knows this is serious. She needs to just sit here maybe and take her punishment. Definitely. much. What I'd like to hear a little bit more about too is it does sound like you're really struggling with this, that you're trying to figure out what to do, and that she doesn't always listen and she's making some choices that are really concerning to you. So I really want to hear from you what it was like in your experience trying to parent her. What led up to the belt incident? What happened when you used the belt during the belt incident, and then what happened afterwards? Okay, I really want to understand what it's like for you.
We can just stop it there. Okay. Observations. What did you notice about what Dr. Runyon, the therapist, is asking her, what she's trying to elicit?
A lot of reflective listening.
Good. Yeah, a lot of reflective listening, right? Melissa's telling her things and she's repeating that back to her, right? What I hear you saying is, you're thinking this, you're feeling this, you're doing this. Good. Yeah, a lot of reflective listening. What else?
For rationale to build up to the impact of the event, to that anger.
Right. Yeah, she wants to know kind of what led to this. And this didn't just happen out of nowhere, right? There was context to this and it was leading up to this, not even just this day, right? But for weeks or months, things had been going on. She's really kind of eliciting all those details about that, right? Her thoughts and feelings going into it. Good. Anything else you noticed?
The scaling of the feelings.
Yes, very good. Very good. She wants to know how intense was this feeling, right? So she tells her she's angry. She's getting a scale of how angry were you? And did that change over the course of this event, right? And it definitely did. And she kind of talked about that, how it escalated.
Validating the concern and the fear that she has about her child.
Yes, right. She does a nice job of validating her. She says, understandably, you were concerned about her and the choices she was making and where this might lead, right? So she did a really nice job of validating the parent's concern. She's not validating her behavior, right? The hitting, not once does she do that, but she's validating her feelings, right? And her concern for her child. It makes sense that you felt this way, that you were concerned about her. And there's one thing that Melissa said that we didn't get to in this video, and it might have happened later that we don't see. What was the other feeling she identified besides anger? Did anybody pick up on it? Scared. Yes. Mom says, I was scared. I'm scared that she's going to be promiscuous and these things are going to happen. So that would be another one that I probably would highlight and say, tell me more about that feeling of fear. What are your thoughts behind that? And how intense was that feeling, right? Because that was mixed in there with the anger, this fear that her child's going to make some bad choices, right? So that whole thing came about. It'd be very easy to think this is a parent who's just whipping her belt, like no big deal, but there's a lot behind it, right? And this is true for a lot of our parents, right? Figuring out what's going on behind that. And so how can we reach the parent and have that empathy for the parent being concerned for their child and not knowing what to do, right? I had just had it. It was the middle of the night. I didn't know what to do. Okay, so this is more of Dr. Runyon sort of recapping the disclosure incident.
Yeah, no, right.
Okay. And you're thinking she should just accept this. So you got more and more upset as she was like trying to get away because she knew she had made the wrong choice, that she had violated the rule about not using the phone after 10 o'clock or whatnot.
Right.
Very explicit rule. And you know, you also said afterwards, you said, you know, I'm not proud of, I used some language I shouldn't have used in front of my 11-year-old. So it sounds like you're furious, you're pissed off, but it also sounds like you're feeling a lot of other things in that moment.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I was. I'm mad as all get out.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about afterwards then. So you're angry, you hit her. What happened immediately after you tried to spank her on the butt and she was trying to get away?
I reached out. Well, then I was mad because she was being disrespectful. She was totally being disrespectful. And so I grabbed the belt and I thought, you know, she's up in her ante with trying to get away and running around the room. and I mean it. I mean it. I want her to take me seriously. So I grabbed the belt to aim for her bottom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I couldn't reach her. I could reach her better with the belt when she's darting around.
And so and then what happened afterwards? What happened after all was said and done? After you reached the belt and you got a hold of her and you hit her with the belt?
I only hit her. I hit her a couple of times, and then she started screaming, and I realized it might have really hurt her. And I stopped. I threw the belt down, and I left the room. I got out of there because I mean, you know, there wasn't really anything else to do.
Okay, so I'm hearing. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing she started to scream, and then your thought process changed. You thought, I think I might have really hurt my daughter.
Yes.
And you threw the belt down and you left the room. Thoughts in your head.
No, right.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, videos are tricky. Okay, so there's more of that. Let's see. Just go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. All right. So we kind of talked about what we saw with Dr. Runyon, that some of the tools that the therapist used. What did we learn about the parent? What do we know about her from what we saw?
He's a disciplinarian.
Right. She's the disciplinarian in the house. And she kind of phrased it like, I get saddled with it, being the disciplinarian. Did you catch that? Yeah, like, oh, I have to do it. So that might not be something that she necessarily wants to do, but that's kind of her role in the house. Yeah. Good. What else?
She cares about her daughter's safety. So even though she gave Chevy here that wasn't safe, it was because she was concerned about her safety.
Yes, very good. Yeah, she really is concerned about her daughter's safety, right? She's scared for her. She's concerned about her safety. So this came from a place of concern, right? Okay. Anything else we learned about the parent? Yeah.
I'm not sure how to phrase this exactly, but there was like a change in the thought process when she was realizing like, oh wow, I really might have hurt my daughter. And it was, going back to like, there is love and concern there. She doesn't want to hurt her child,
right?
But it's about like controlling, making sure she's safe, and that's how she knows to try to keep her safe.
Right. Good. She does have that shift, right? Her child screams and she says, uh-oh, might have really hurt her. That was not my intention. It was really about her trying to make her point about how concerned she was, right? But she says, oh, I might have hurt her. So she stopped and she left the room. And we didn't get to hear what she says, but how do you think she felt after that? Probably shame, right?
Remorseful.
Yeah. Feeling bad, feeling remorse. Yeah. Feeling bad about it. Absolutely. Okay. So we know she probably does have some remorse. Do you think she recognizes or has any empathy for her child?
I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, we didn't hear a lot of the after part, but
The empathy, because her whole thing was being concerned about her safety and still going in on why did you, she was just trying to, I didn't hear that.
We haven't quite gotten to that part yet. Maybe a little bit towards the end when she has the thought I might have hurt her, right? But we didn't really get into that in the end. One thing I think that Dr. Runyon helped highlight was that escalation. You guys mentioned that, her recognizing that she was escalating. She was already upset, and that kind of as it went on, her emotions escalated.
And I heard her say this too, this may be going backwards, but she gave her daughter credit for being smart, and she had premeditated this. So I don't know if she had a feeling she outsmart her, outthought her.
Right. Yeah, the mom probably felt manipulated by her daughter. Yeah, that's a really good point. She does. She says that several times, doesn't she, about how smart her daughter is, and then kind of talks about that. She had to have planned this to come down and get into my room at 2 a.m. Right? So yeah, mom probably felt manipulated. Any other beliefs or potential distortions the parent has about the child or their behavior? I think she's kind of viewing her daughter's behavior accurately. And I know we didn't get to see everything, but sometimes that can be behind some of the abuse we see with parents, as either distortion about what their child's doing and the intent they apply to it. And some of it might be that sort of pre-meditation piece that she talks about, but either kind of distorting their child's intent or having inaccurate expectations for their age, right? And expecting their child to understand or know more than maybe they actually do, or that is developmentally appropriate. So those are also things that we want to keep in mind with parents, that some of what we do is some education around kind of what we should expect a child of this age to know or to do. And then also looking at intent, parents who say, they're just being manipulative or they're doing this to spite me, sort of helping them see that there might be other reasons for what their child is doing, that it's not necessarily those distortions. Yeah.
Even when she was saying, like, she wasn't taking me seriously when I was trying to spank her, but it's like, maybe she was just trying to get away from being physically hit.
Excellent example. Yeah. She wasn't taking me seriously because she was running away. Well, maybe she's trying not to get hurt because you have a belt, right? Right. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So this is a workshop, so we're going to have y'all practice. So what we'd like for you to do, let's see, we got 2, 4, we have exactly an even number. So if you all could partner up with somebody and just do a brief role play. You're not doing this in front of the group or anything like that. Like no judging. Okay, we're just practicing. This isn't, no one's getting graded or anything like that, right? We just want to practice. One of you playing the counselor, one of you playing the parent, and just trying to do what you just saw Dr. Runyon do. So just asking about the incident, trying to find out what happened before and what led up to it, what happened during the event, and what happened after. And trying to elicit some of those thoughts and feelings to try to get some more information about the parent, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, where they were coming from, kind of what was behind what happened. Okay? We have a scenario for you to use. So you don't have to think of one if you can't think of one exactly. So let's say whoever's playing the parent, you're the parent of an adolescent boy who has not been doing well in school. Their grades have kind of dropped. They're spending a lot of time playing video games, can't get them off the screen. So this has been happening for a while. And then the referral incident was child was not listening. As the parent, you raised your voice, get off now. I said so. Child still doesn't listen. Finally, as the parent, you say something loud and mean to the child, who then throws the remote control and a physical altercation happens. Okay. Dad tries to restrain the child fights back. Sibling calls 911. DCS arrives. Okay.
Question.
Yes. Please.
When he throws the remote, now is he just throwing it at him, or does he actually make contact with him with the remote? Are you just throwing the remote?
Let's say he just throws the remote at the TV.
Okay, so it doesn't contact.
Doesn't contact dad, but dad's mad that he threw this and broke something and confronts him, and they end up in a physical altercation. Okay. You, as the parent, whoever's role playing the parent, feel free to add details and, make the story your own or whatever to fill in the gaps. But in general, that's what's happened. Okay. And we'll just give you a few minutes just to get that experience, and then we'll talk about it as a group. Okay. Any questions? Hey. All right. We'll give you like 10 minutes.
It doesn't matter. You mean to be clear? I'll let you be the parent.
Okay. Well, I am one, so that.
I deal with.
Okay. Well, you can give a picture. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can give you today about
new context now. Yeah.
Yeah, next one, your hospital experience was, so
Really, like, I was meeting on for 2 years.
to,
His time was moment.
damn,
Yeah, what happened?
Anything that always drives me to do is like methodical, unless a regular. It's really slow and it's where you need to be, but it's, yeah, it's a good balance.
I try to do that. It's a
Like always, stay on video games. I tell them off in.
So they have
Young boys, they have the headphones up, you want this game.
Oh, we're almost there. Oh my God. So that's the thing we probably do.
And here,
Yeah, you did. Yeah, it was not.
it's so how does? So when you go, so you did kind of so I can get out of it. Man, I'm doing it. So they became really.
yeah.
Why? Why they did more practice? So
That's made from there.
you know, that's what that not thing.
Wow, so that's Spain.
And the next day, so the event. One thing, another one. We tried to get those when she didn't be. Yeah. Okay.
The sound bite.
So it's like super helpful. Yeah.
Around that.
So after they get it,
He's not really talking. So he's kind of building you out to like a headphone.
What was
And you really want to build that conversation. Playing video games.
Really?
I'll put that on. So he ends up throwing the
Yeah.
out of in that moment, sounds like then. And that.
It was all I could use it. And it was like, they just started like, yeah. And again, it's like, I heard the same thing.
Yeah. And again, you're in the States,
so I've never been video game.
yeah, and like, first, maybe.
And the end will be.
Some questions like, what's
No, it's just like. Wally, I mean, I never, but Wally, it's in sentences, like as a writer, you know, I just like. I get struggle for 20 minutes to get to doctors and then you're kind of where he's at and that's what I make. I mean, it's very limited thing, because he started using it a lot. And, you know, when you're trying to write, you're like, what should they write, right? Right. Or you go stuck on like, I wrote this, there are not even any words and blah, but you don't think any words, you know, like, so some of those, but I don't. I don't video game.
Yeah,
I know. That'll take some time.
Yeah, so it sounds like it started as like a reward for him. He really saw video games as like, it's gonna be great. I was trying to, I don't think that, you know, and now it's like in that moment, it's like, oh, maybe the video game is gonna turn into not so good for him. And that like this is kind of turned on the end and then it's turned into causing behaviors almost like you didn't anticipate a reward turning into now. Yeah.
Like you, that guy made me that situation that it became. Because I worked hard, I didn't know this one of them. I wanted to have a better life. I didn't to their parents like, yeah, I'm better with it. So what would you do? They never bring so that was
turned on you, and that was sounded like maybe that was frustrating, or tell me what that feeling was that paired with the.
It was very frustrating. I worked very hard to somebody who had a life, you know, we had an action plan. Do what you do. You actually want to go in that line. Somebody happens. So it's frustrating. You don't hear that. This one I'm more watch more hours. I get everything. Make sure it's okay. I'll take we would, yeah.
Yeah, so frustration, the phase, at the moment where it wasn't listening compared to maybe the moment when after we through the object, how did like where did the emotion start maybe with the scale that 1 to 10? How did that shift throughout that moment?
Conversation wise, we're going to upset. Was not very close. Not restrained. Back on it. Next week, I'll let you know what he's like, but not. Maybe. You know, there's trouble about the other. Substance.
What ended up happening right after that?
That mother's saying, don't hurt my baby. And it all went to which was to go talk to him.
All right, I'm gonna have you pause there. I hate to interrupt you because you guys are doing so well, having some good conversations. So let's just kind of talk about what that was like. Any just initial observations or about doing that exercise?
I think it was a nice way for me to combine motivational interviewing with CBT type thing. I'm used to kind of compartmentalizing them maybe a little more.
Yeah.
And I like thinking of them both intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah, being able to use both kind of together. Yeah. Other thoughts? Those of you playing the counselor or the therapist?
I think sorry. With certain events, it is easy to be like, I can see where you're coming from and empathize with them. I think others I might have a little bit harder time with, but I feel like for the most part, you can be like, I get why it led to this, even if the behavior isn't okay. And so it can be really helpful to respond that way. It seems like it helps the parent definitely be more open to talk about what they did. And
right. Great point that by being able to offer empathy with the parent, it sort of decreases their defensiveness, right? And they can say more. They're gonna feel more comfortable with you to share more if they feel like you're understanding where they're coming. And I appreciate you saying, in some parts it was easier than in other parts. I had less empathy with the hitting, but I also understood where it come from, the feeling behind it, what led up to it. Good. Any other thoughts from the therapist role play?
The other thing is you can almost kind of work on a prevention plan going forward. So we've had this event that occurred. So when you telling me this, is what steps can you do the next time
Exactly.
that will not escalate or de-escalate the situation, or how to do it too?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And the triangle is perfect for that, sort of going through each of those. And when this happens again, yeah. And we get there a little later in the model, right? But this is a good sort of foundation on which you can build that. Good. Parents, what was it like as the parent? And what were things that your partner did that sort of helped you disclose or that were helpful as you told your story?
She actually walked me back through it. I threw everything but the kitchen sink at her. She was very calm. Never let her emotions get higher. She kept at a calm pace. She, constantly, okay, let's revisit this. What could you have done? And I think a lot of times dealing with young people in situations like this, that it's hard because we see ourselves as, okay, we want to be sympathetic or empathetic. And at the same time, you have to have a disciplinary role. So I think this right here was a great tool, going into parenting classes, having parents do this role model so they can see themselves. A lot of parents don't see themselves,
right?
In this situation. And if they role play it, then you have a thought that, wait a minute, we did this in role playing. It's like this is practice parenting. And parenting, a lot of times you don't get the chance to practice as a parent. It's real time.
Yeah.
So I think in doing that, will be a great tool to take back to say, hey, let's do some role playing in some difficult situations to see if we can work through them. So when they come,
right,
we have ways and means of dealing.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Thank you. And other thoughts?
My therapist, she made me feel like I could trust her. I didn't feel like that she was after me. The empathy that she showed me by repeating back what I said and she understood, it just opened me up to trust. I didn't feel attacked.
Right. Very good. Yeah, that's our goal. Yeah, right. Very good. That is the goal. It's the goal.
And you had a therapist, so she's a trained therapist.
So bad. So mine. I just
get there. Yeah.
Is she put me at ease?
Yeah. Very good.
And I like the fact of the tone remaining the same and all of that. And then getting me to actually reflect over things, but go more to proactiveness to having a plan. Redirect the thought.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Well, great job. Great job, everybody. Thanks for your willingness to do that, to kind of put yourselves out there and be vulnerable. Once we do this, then we do some psychoeducation with the parents. So we don't want to jump right into, okay, you've been mandated to come to therapy because you've abused your child. So let me tell you why it's bad to abuse your child. Like, we don't start with that, right? We start with this. We start with the engagement first. Get the parent's point of view, get their perspective, empathize with them. Then we can move into, here are some reasons hitting with a belt might not be a good idea. Let's see if we can come up with other strategies, right? We're going to do that after we've done some engagement and some rapport building and some empathy, right? so that we do reduce that defensiveness, right, and feeling attacked. I don't have time to show you this, but kind of what we do once we have the disclosure of the referral incident is part of the empathy building too, is hearing about the parent's experience. What was your childhood like? Did anything like this happen to you as a child? And we hear their side as a child, oftentimes being abused. So we don't go in assuming, because we don't know, right? We don't know everyone's story, but we ask, what were things like for you at home? Did you ever experience anything like this or see anything like this? And oftentimes they have. And when they do, we get them to talk about that and talk about how they felt as a child when their parent yelled at them or hit them or whatever happened to them, right? What was that like? Do you think your child ever feels that way when you get angry? And a lot of parents haven't connected that at all. And to hear that, oftentimes there's kind of an aha moment, like, I never thought about how they felt when I yelled, but thinking about how I felt when my dad yelled, right? So that's one way for them to start to have more empathy for their child if they can connect it with their own experience of being abused as a child. Okay, I mentioned this, sort of us as therapists, workers, whatever your role is, if you're working with families in this situation, having empathy for those parents so they can have empathy for their child, right? We want to model that for them, like we want them to treat their child, that circle of empathy. And really working to promote that long-term safety and trauma-informed parenting by having the parents emotionally support their kids. And as we mentioned, but it can't be overstated, there is a direct relationship between lack of parental empathy and the use of physical coercive parenting practices. So building empathy, that is our goal. We increase empathy for the child, we decrease physical abuse. Okay. That is it. It's much more than just holding the parent accountable, sending them to anger management. That's not going to fix anything, right? We need to increase that empathy, help them understand their child. Okay, this is just examples of this model that have been used throughout the world in lots of different countries. That we have the English version. Did you get your prop?
Oh, I didn't get on my prop.
Michele has
I have a prop.
Has a prop of one version of that. And as she mentioned, this is a model that we've done some work in Tennessee, but we're really hoping to do more of it in the coming years. And so if you're interested.
Yeah. So here's the prop. But it is a manual, right? Like, so you can get trained, but there's nothing to say that you can't take this manual and use some of this, empathy building activities with what you're doing. So yeah, we love to have folks trained, but also there are some really important pieces in here that you could take from having the manual.
Right. So if you're interested, you can scan that QR code. You can also just contact either Michele or I at the COEs. There's our email addresses. There's Dr. Running's information. She's the developer. Okay. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
So if that was like a parent alone
Yes.
session, so would that Zoom have been like you meet with the child and then the child leaves and the parent comes and then you bring them together? That would be like one full.
Yes. So that would be how the manual is laid out, to meet with the child alone, the parent alone. And so sometimes you're doing the same kind of work with the parent and the child. Sometimes you're doing very different work, right? If you're doing this with the parent, you're doing something different with the child. You're doing trauma screening and assessment, baseline narrative with them, that kind of stuff with the child. So it'll look very different. And then at the end of these early sessions, when we bring them together, very short, like just very short periods of time and very structured so that it's positive, right? But it's gradual. And then as sessions go on, you spend more and more time in joint sessions until you finally get to the narrative phase. Michele mentioned, the manual calls for 90-minute sessions, and nobody that I know can do 90-minute sessions. So when I do this model, I usually break it up. I either just, if I'm just doing short stuff with them, I'll do half and half, and then a short session in like a 45-minute period or a 50-minute period. Or other times I'll just alternate weeks. So I'll just see the parent alone one week and the child alone one week, and then do a joint, maybe at the end of each of those or something. Like I don't have time to get everything done in 45 minutes to meet with them both. So I'll just alternate weeks. So there are different ways you can modify it. And Dr. Moser mentioned that, you know, if you're doing shorter sessions, you might need to do more than the 16 to 20 that it calls for. That's okay. I mean, as long as you're doing all the components.
Yeah, with the populations that we serve with the parenting,
Mm-hmm.
child protection services, Department of Children's Services, our families are very explosive. So we have to start them out separately and slowly bring them together, because what we found that cultural is challenging, because being an authoritative position, and then like you said, generational things. How was it for you? And I can tell you that what we've seen is how, I mean, they really break down because they never thought before about where they got it from, how they developed it, things of that sort. Now it's like second or third generation. So
yeah,
it's just like a real thing in the face, you know.
Yeah.
And then they don't like to hear their children tell how they feel. And I'm like, no, you have to do it. You may hurt,
Yep.
and you may disagree, but then you be able to hear them move forward. So
That's right. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I have a family right now I'm trying to work with. The child like doesn't want to see the parent at all. And DCS is working toward unification. So we have this deal where I'm going to work with mom, just her, and just do her stuff. And the thought is if the child sees that mom's dedicated and she's willing to come in and she's working every week, then he can develop some trust of that. And then we'll gradually start to bring him in. So yeah, sometimes you have to be creative.
You do.
And meet our parents where they are. Yeah.
So very good information. Thank you. Thank you all for
You're
that.
so welcome.
Very good.
Thank you all. Great job with your role plays. Enjoy your evening.
You're good.
Yes, you did.